Hi friends, Sharon from Mad Paper Crush here. I don't know if you know what these are. These are photographer cabinet cards. These were cards that photographers would make for people after they had their photos taken in the mid to late 1800s is when I believe they were the most popular. And they usually had the name of the photographer on the bottom and where they were located. And then they called them cabinet cards because the size of them made it easy for someone to display them in a cabinet in their house. So those are what cabinet cards are. So today what I wanted to do was show you a cabinet card kit that I've created in case you don't have access to real cabinet cards. You can actually make your own. But the other thing that not that I don't like about it, but these are all people I don't know. So I have also created in the kit a way to create cabinet cards to put in pictures of your own with the people that you love inside of them. So I'm going to step you through this process today, and I hope that you can make some of your own cabinet cards to put into your journals or to even display around your house with the people that you love in them. These are the papers that are in the kit. So I wanted to show them to you. So there are 2 pages that have a full cabinet card or full cabinet cards created for you to be able to just cut out and use as a note card, a pocket, a tuck spot, or even create it into its own cabinet card. So those are the 2 pages that have the cabinet cards on them. And then the other pages are to actually create your own cabinet cards using your own pictures, whatever that might be. So there's the back part and the frame. And because this one was so big, I had to put the photo template on another page here, but you can see the full 3 pieces of the cabinet card that you make yourself would be a back piece, the frame piece that goes on top, and then the photo template so you know what size to cut your photo. And as we do these, I will explain that a little bit further. But those are all of the pages that are included in the kit. So these are some examples of cabinet cards that are actual cabinet cards from the late 1800s that you can see here that I've found at antique stores and things like that. And I absolutely love them so much. But you can see they're hard. They're like backed with chipboard or something there. And then the pictures are, you know, sometimes put into a frame and then put on top of the back piece. But I thought it would be so cool to be able to put my own pictures in these cards. So that's why I wanted to create this kit. So what we're going to be doing today, in case you've never had these, you don't have access to them, or like me, you just want to create some that maybe have your own people in them. That's what we're going to be doing today using the cabinet card kit that I have. So that being said, we're not going to be using these 2 cards that have the full pictures on them. We are just going to be creating them based on the kit pieces. So I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to use the pieces here. So, we may not be using all of the pieces, and just some different ideas for you to use if you'd like to create your own cabinet cards. So these are the pictures I'm going to use, and I will talk about this more in just a minute. Okay, so once you've printed your cabinet card pieces, I've printed all of them out here, and I've printed them on 2 different types of paper because depending on what you have around the house or what you plan to use the cabinet card for, you may want to print it on different things. So 2 of them I've printed out just on presentation paper. So it's a good paper, so it takes the colors very nice, but it's very lightweight. It's not very sturdy. So I'm going to show you some ways to put them together using paper like this. And then the other two I printed out. I printed on a cardstock. So it's still, you know, not the feel of, you know, a chipboard or anything like that. But we're going to be doing a little bit different construction with the cardstock. So depending on what you have around or what you would like to do, these are the starting options that I'm going to show you how to start with. Then the other thing that you need to do is you need to have some photos. So these photos are the people that I love that I'd like to have in the picture. So these three are my daughter in different stages of her life. And then this one is of my husband and I when we were in Germany. So I've printed them with filters. So I just added, like, you know, some sepia tones and changed them to black and white, or, you know, just kind of made the color look vintage, so that they would, you know, kind of align with the theme of a cabinet card. But you certainly don't have to do that if you don't want to. You could use, you know, just whatever pictures you want. And I've printed all of them onto just a presentation paper like this. And then, you know, we'll cut them out based on how we're going to do each one of the cabinet cards. Okay, the first construction I'm going to do is using this backer for the cabinet card. And I think I'm going to use this picture of my daughter. I kind of like the way these two colors sort of complement each other. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to cut out the picture of my daughter and the background of the frame. Okay, so I didn't cut out the frame because the first construction that I wanted to show you is just using the background of the cabinet card and the picture itself. So some of the cabinet cards were, you know, very plain, and they didn't necessarily have, you know, a frame or a border around them. So what I'm going to do with this picture is I'm just going to use my corner rounder, and I'm going to round the edges of my background card. And you can see this is printed on the light paper, so we will have to reinforce that a bit. And then I'm also going to round the corners of my daughter here. So, and you can see this is a little bit big. I could probably cut this a little smaller. And if I would have used the template, I may have known that ahead of time, which I did not. So this is the template for card 1, and this was card 1 that we're using. So each of the cards for each of the construction pages are listed on the bottom of the card, so you kind of know which card you're talking about here. So this is the template for card 1. Now you can see, actually, I'm going to go ahead and cut this template out too, so we can really take a look at how to use the templates as well. So here's my template, which I should have cut out first, and I didn't, so I apologize for that. So you can see I probably should cut down this picture so that it fits nicer into the cabinet card frame with a, you know, a nicer border. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this over top, and what you can do is if you lift up the template, you can kind of see through it, but you don't have to do it that way either. And I think I want to leave a lot on the bottom, like I want, you know, that up at the top here, that's pretty close enough to the top of her head. So I think I'm going to put the template up at the top, line up the top, and then I'm just going to eyeball the center, and I'm going to take a pencil and I'm just going to mark the side lines here so I know where to cut. And you can see that the template also has another border line that I didn't cut to. And when we do one of the other constructions, I'll show you what that border line is for. But this one, I actually cut to the very edge of the template color there that you can see around that beige border. I hope you can see it anyway. Okay, so let me go ahead and cut this down again, since I got ahead of myself and just started cutting without realizing there's a whole point to having those templates there. And this will fit much better on the card. So let's round again here. Sometimes my corner rounder gets stuck. I don't know why it does that sometimes. Okay. So now, yes, that looks much better. So now I can just glue this down, and I could use this just as is if I wanted to, or I could back it with some cardboard or some chipboard or something like that. So before I do that though, because what I do is ink everything, I am going to ink this a bit. So I'm going to get my inking paper out because I want the edges of the background and the picture to be cohesive. So I'm going to add, this is Gathered Twigs Distress Ink. If I can open it up. And I'm just going to add some distress around the edges of everything here. Okay, now we're really ready to roll. Now, if you wanted this to stand out, or up, I should say, a bit more, you could back the picture with something before you mounted it onto the card backer. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and attach this. I just have some glue paper here, and I am going to use my glue stick to attach this down. And I'm just eyeballing where I want it. And there we go. Now, if I wanted to make this like a more authentic cabinet card, obviously we would need to mount this on something. So I always keep packaging around, and so having something like this on the back would be perfect. So we could glue this down here, and we could actually create a nice heavy card for this. And then because this is plain, this would even make a nice journaling card or something as well. So why don't we go ahead and do that? Let's go ahead and put this on here, and then we will cut it down. Now, to put it on here, because this is kind of smooth, I think I'm going to use my Beacon 3-in-1 glue, which is kind of like Fabri-Tac, and no, there's another name for it. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but this is, Beacon makes a couple of different kinds of glue that I think probably are pretty close to the same. But let's go ahead and use this to glue it down to my packaging here. I'm just going to take my bone folder and make sure it's pressed down everywhere. Okay, so we're going to put this aside for now, and we'll come back to it after it's nice and dry. Okay, so now we're going to work on cabinet card 2. And I am going to cut out all the pieces, including the photo template, which I didn't do the first time right away. And then I'm going to use, I think, this picture of my daughter because I like the way that she'll fit inside this photo frame. So I'm just going to cut her out just real simply because we'll be cutting it down based on the template. And then the rest of these I'll cut out using my cutter so I have a little bit more exact cut for these. Okay, now I have all my pieces here. Now for this construction, I realize I missed a little bit of the white on the frame here, so I am just gonna use my little scissors and make sure I cut that off. I didn't mean to do that. Sometimes I think my cutter is crooked. I don't know if anybody else feels that way. Like it doesn't quite line things up exactly straight for me. I don't know why. Okay, so now I have the frame, the backing, and the picture. So I need to cut out the picture. Now I wanted to explain a little bit more about this photo template. If you cut along the outside edge of the photo template, which I've done here, this will actually go under a frame that's been cut out on the inside as well, which we'll do one of those in a minute. But for this one, I don't want to cut around the inside. I don't have the time. This is very thin paper, so I don't want to rip. So if you don't have cardstock and you're just printing on some lighter weight paper, you may not want to cut the inside of the frame out to put the picture underneath of it. So instead of cutting around the outside, you can use this inside beige border for your photo template, and then it will fit on the inside of the frame. So if you can see, as I put this down on the frame, and I'll see if I can hold this up, because it's cut around the outside edge of the photo template, the photo is actually about halfway through the frame. So this would be perfect if I had cut the middle of this frame out, because then I could mount the picture behind the frame. But like I said, because this is lighter paper and it's harder sometimes to, have a very thin edge on lighter paper, we're going to cut this down a little bit more to that beige line. And then we'll use that for our photo template. And I'm just going to try to make sure my cutter is as even as I can get it. And I'm just going to cut right down to that beige border. For my template. Okay. And now you can see that when I put the photo frame now on top, you can see the full border. So the photo will actually be mounted on top of the frame, but you'll be able to see the whole border just as if it was mounted behind. So that's kind of what I'm going to do with this one. So I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. I'm going to try to center this where I want it on top of my picture here. And I think I'm going to move this one down just a little bit because I want to see her little diploma that she has there. And then I'm going to mark this with my pencil, which I don't know where I put. Yep, here it is. So that I can cut this down as well. And when I'm marking this, I'll make sure that I cut off these lines that I'm making so that I have the right size. So when I cut them, I'm going to actually try to cut right on the inside of the marks that I made, so that the photo is the right size for the frame. And hopefully I did a decent job of doing that. Let's see what I did. Yes, that will work very nicely. Now we can start mounting everything. So you can see I only had to cut out squares here to make this kind of work. So I am going to, once again, I bet you can guess, ink everything before I do any gluing. Because I want to kind of draw everything together. And I'm even going to ink the edges of this to kind of bring out that texture that's in the frame there as well. And I didn't round the corners on this yet, so I just want to do that real quick before I ink. Oof, I think I'm gonna have to use my other corner rounder. Okay. Now we can start mounting again, and I'm just going to start from the top and go down. So I'm going to start with my picture. And I'm going to decide if I want this up or down, which way I want it. And then I'm just going to do my best to center this. Luckily with this glue, I think I have a little bit of time to move it, but I didn't need it. Did pretty good on there. And then I'm going to do the same thing and mount it onto the background. And I'm just going to eyeball it again. I want to leave a little bit of room at the top and make sure my little photographer name and everything is showing at the bottom there. All right, and there you have it. There's a second one done. But once again, this is on pretty light card. So we have to, well, we don't have to do anything. If you want, you can mount it onto card or cardboard like we had done before. Or I think this one would make a fun little journaling card. So I think I'm just going to back it with some book page paper. And maybe if I have some, let's see if I have some scraps. Maybe what I'll do is I'll use some of this tea-dyed paper that has some lines. I think that would be fun. So before I can do that, I'm going to just going to go ahead and use these, I think. Since these won't be seen, I don't have to be real exact in my glue here. So all I'm doing is I'm gluing 2 pieces of book page together to give some weight to my card here. And then I will, once this is dry, I will cut this out and then mount this whole thing to my background page that I want to use for journaling. So I do want to just give this a little bit of time to dry so that when we cut it out, if there's any places that didn't quite glue the way I wanted them to, we can make sure those are all glued down together. So right now I'm just adding some pressure and hopefully some heat from my hand to make sure the glue is activated all the way around. Okay, but we'll let this one go as well until the end, and then we'll finish that one up once it's good and dry as well. Okay, card number 3. So this one has an oval frame. So it has an oval photo size template. And I think for this one, I'm going to use this tall picture of my daughter because I think that she'll fit in that oval nicely. So this is one of the ones, this card I actually printed out on cardstock. So it's a little bit heavier paper, and we're going to try to mount this one a little bit differently. So I'm going to cut out the picture of my daughter and my 3 pieces, and we will start constructing this one. Okay, I have my pieces cut out. And since this one I cut on cardstock, I think I'm going to try to cut out the middle of this to make the picture go underneath. I think that'll give this a nice realistic pop when we put it together. So I did cut the photo around the very outside. I didn't go down to that inside lining. If I was just going to place this on top, the photo on top, I could cut down to the brown line and then have a picture that fit inside the frame on top of it. But we're going to try it the other way. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut out my daughter here. And once again, I'm going to just kind of hold this up to the light and make sure I have her in the frame here, centered as much as I can. And now for this one, because it's round, I am going to try to draw all the way around so I know where to cut. But I will try to cut the pencil mark off when I do the cutting, when I do the actual cutting around. So I think I can see that all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead and cut her out. Okay, and now I'm going to cut the frame out. So to do that, I'm going to start with a straight edge just to give myself an opening here, but I'm going to fussy cut out the inside of the frame. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to start at one edge of the frame, and I'm going to just make a slice down to the middle there. And actually I'm going to do one more, but I want to be real careful if I hit this line. I don't want to pull the paper and tear the paper. Okay, so this is a nice big opening that I can get in with my scissors to start fussy cutting around the edge here. So I'm just going to try to go right up to the frame edge here. And because I'm putting the photo behind the frame, we just need to be sure that we get as close to the edge as possible. Okay, I'm going to try. I could probably cut the edge of this with my paper trimmer if I wanted to. Okay, so you can see I wasn't perfect. So I can either go back in and try and get some of this off using my straight edge, or I can see if doing some inking would help cover up some of that. So some of the bigger spots, I am just going to try and see if I can go in and very carefully pull off. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to do this because it really is just a teeny tiny little bit. I don't want to cut my finger either. So I think that might work a little bit. Okay. So once again, it's not perfect. that's okay. So now let me just check and make sure I've got my photo cut at the right size. So I'm just going to, hopefully so you can see it, I'm going to lay the frame on top of the picture and make sure that none of my photo edges are, you know, sticking out from beneath where I might have to cut down the photo. But I think that looks pretty good. So you can kind of see that the frame is going to, you know, be on top of the photo now. And to hide some of these bad cutting things that I have, I'm going to ink once again, and I need to round these corners with my corner rounder, and I'm going to ink all the pieces again. So just a quick tip, when you're inking a small frame like this, it works better if you hold the pieces, you know, with 2 fingers and then ink in between those parts so that you don't tear the frame. And as I just did that one little spot, you can see what a difference it's already going to make on the frame in terms of changing the way it's going to hide some of my mistakes, is all I'm saying there. So you can see that. Okay, inking's all done. And just a note too, when I was inking the photo, I did try to pull it in a little bit more than I would have, just so that when we do put our frame on top, the fading of the inking will show on the photograph, you know, with the frame on top. So what I'm going to do is I am going to put the picture on first. And I've tried this a couple of different ways, and I'm not sure if there's an easy way or not, but whoa, this is how I'm going to do this. I'm going to put this right where I want it. And then what we'll do is we'll put the frame on top. But because the frame is so small, I think I'm going to use my glitter glue for that. So all I'm going to do is just do a light little bead of glue right on the inside or right on the middle of the frame. And then I'm going to carefully, whoa, that wasn't very careful, put this down. On top of my picture. And just give it a little push there so it stays down. And I really like how that turned out. Now this one is on cardstock, so it is a little bit more sturdy than the first 2 cards that we did, but you know, once again, depending on what you want to do with it, you may want to, you know, mount it differently as well. So this one, I think I am going to mount with some cardboard again, because I really just, if I'm being very honest, I just love the cabinet cards and the way that they look and feel. So I think I am going to do that. So let me just cut this down a little bit. And then we'll glue it on, and then we will come back to it when it's dry and really trim it down to make it look nicer. And once again, because this is a little bit heavier, I think I want a little bit heavier glue for it. So I'm going back to my Beacon 3-in-1 for this. And I am going to try to line this up right at the top of this card so that I can do a little bit less trimming when the time comes. And I totally put that on the wrong side. Did you see that? It's another reason I love the fabric glue, because it is so forgiving. So now I have to find another piece that it might fit on. Oh, here we go. Try this again. Let me just add a little bit more glue. Apologize, guys. I was so into getting it glued down, I didn't realize I was gluing it to the wrong side, because of course it's not a very authentic card if I have nut pods showing on the back. All right, we'll see if this is enough glue to hold it down, because I think the stuff underneath has started to dry already. All right, so this is a do-over, and hopefully that's what I want the back to be. Okay, so once again, I'm going to just set this aside to dry before cutting. Okay, and we have one more card, and I've gone ahead and made the card with the picture of my husband and I in Germany, and I used the same technique as I did for our round card. So I actually cut the inside of this frame out, and I used the outside photo template so that the photo went underneath the frame. So you can see this is how this one turned out. And I did the backing for this one. I actually used book pages and some tea dyed paper to make this into a note card. So I wasn't going to do that one step by step since the technique was the same, but I did want to show you, what the finished cabinet card ended up looking like. So all of my cabinet cards are dry now, and we can do a little cutting them out. So I just wanted to kind of show you, how I finish them off in case that would inspire you or you would like to know how I do that. But I'll show you how I make one of the note cards, and I'll show you how I do one of the cabinet cards. So I'm going to put this one aside for now, and I'm just going to do these two, since this one would be, you know, the same thing as this one. So for the cardboard one, that's going to be like a cabinet card, I am going to trim this down using my cutter, but I actually have if I can get this out, a separate blade that I use just for cardboard, because boy does it wreck those blades fast if you cut a lot of cardboard with your cutter. So you could use a straight edge or a you know, or even just your scissors if you wanted to. You don't have to use the cutter if you don't want to. And depending on how bad this blade is, I may end up doing a little bit of just cutting with my scissors anyway. This just goes faster, so I like to do it on the cutter, but it's not always possible, or, you know, you may not want to, you know, have a junky blade around to do that. So, okay. Alrighty. So that one's cut out, and actually, while I have my cutter here, I'm going to go ahead and cut this one out as well. But this is not cardboard, so I'm going to remove it. And I saw a 37-second video that was the most helpful video ever. If you've ever wanted to replace these blades and you want to know how, there's actually a little notch inside this cutter. So you can kind of see it there. So when you replace a blade, you find the notch and you put it in the notch first, and then it goes in nice and smooth. So let me tell you, when I first found that out, it was so helpful. So I hope that helped somebody out today. And this one we're going to have to cut again, because we are adding one more piece to it, the tea-dyed paper. But I wanted to cut it out so that I kind of have an idea of where I want to put it on my tea-dyed paper before I cut it out. So let me do that first. I'm going to add some glue to this to get it onto the tea-dyed paper, and hopefully it'll be nice and dry by the time we get to finishing it off. So I'm just going to once again add some glue, but I want to do this as much coverage as I can and try to make sure I get to the edges so that it's nice and glued down. And this one I'm going to put, let's see, I think I'm going to put it on this side so that when you turn it over, nope. Yikes. Okay, I'm gonna put it on this side. So I'll show you what I mean when I get it down here. Now I am trying to kind of line it up at the top and the bottom. I didn't do such a hot job there. So now I have my red line on this side and I can write across here. So, all right, let's give that one a second to dry and we will work on the other one. So first thing I'm going to do is try and round my corners, and I don't know, I used my other corner rounder that was giving me some trouble for the back of this, but let me see if I can get these to match up. I don't know if the curve is going to be the same. Nope, it's not. So I do have to come back in with this one, and either I could just cut it out, and actually maybe that's what I'll do since this corner rounder doesn't want to work very good for me today. Since the curve doesn't match, I'm just going to cut them out by hand here. And the last thing that we'll do on this one is ink again to just kind of make sure the cardboard and the backing paper all kind of have a nice cohesive look. And in case I cut off any of the edge distress, which I'm sure I probably did just now. Okay, so this one's almost done. And we're just going to add a little distress. And actually I may just kind of hold it and do it so that my cardboard has a little distress. And like this edge, it looks like I might have cut off a little of the background paper. So it was kind of had a white edge there. So I wanted to make sure that was covered up. And I may even just add a little, just a little to the back here to look like it's been held and propped up and things. But you can see this cardboard, because it's nice and light, would still make a fine place for journaling or whatever you wanted to on the back there. Okay. So this one is done. Whoops. I probably shouldn't have put her on there. You can see I got a little distress around her mouth, but that's okay. But you can see it's nice and hard like a real cabinet card would be. So this one is done. And let's go ahead and finish this one. I think this one's probably good. Probably should have used my phone folder a little bit to kind of spread this out. And I think I'm just going to cut this out with these scissors. And then I may need to, because I didn't line up the bottom that good, to trim the bottom here. And these would probably even look really cute with a little sewing edge to them if you are a sewer. I'm going to use this one, do better with that one. I probably could use the corner rounder on this one, just because it's a little thinner than the cardstock or the cardboard one, but I'm not going to. It looks like I missed a little here too. I'm sure that you all are way more exact than I am, but that's why I love inking, because it really covers up a lot of mistakes. So I'm going to ink around this one like we did the other one, just making sure any white edges are kind of knocked off and that the whole piece has a nice cohesive feel. And I'm going to do the same thing on the back, give it a little extra distress love. Okay, now this one, I can still feel it's not quite dry, but this one is also, it's, you know, journal card thickness. It's not as thick as a real cabinet card, but that's okay because I wanted to make it into a note card. But that one is done as well. So that, once I would cut this one out, I would do the same thing with it. And that is making your own cabinet cards. So just a side note, if you're going to use the full cabinet cards that are in the kit, the way that, after I cut them out, the way that I backed them was very much like I had done with these. So I just used some recycled packaging. I think this was a packaging for some stamps or some stencils that I had gotten. But because of the black color and the dark frame on this, I thought that was a perfect backing for this one. And then the other ones, I just used some recycled packaging that I had. So there were Ziploc bag boxes, nut pod boxes, you know, soda can packaging, you know, for cases and things like that to make these cabinet cards into nice sturdy cards. I did use the 3-in-1 glue to glue them down, and for a couple of them I did also put some matte medium on the top, so it gave them, I don't know if you can see it through the camera here, but it gave it a nice texture on the top, which I kind of liked. So you could do that if you would like to as well. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on making your own cabinet cards. I've put the link down below to the kit if you're interested in getting it and making your own. I hope you like this video. Please subscribe to my channel and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much, friends. Bye-bye.